Egon pokes the fire as embers climb towards the night sky above you. Each of you sit around the crackling logs and glowing coals, your breaths blooming in the cold October air as he speaks. So you want to hear the tale of the first winter, as my father tells it. The village was founded in late summer, and by autumn it was quite well established. They had built houses and barns, most of what you see here. He points to the buildings around the fire where you sit, surrounding the small village. They had plenty of food to eat. Not a soul among them had any fear. Then the first winter came. His eyes narrow as they dart between the three of you. You sit amongst a few other of the townsfolk. Egon is the village tanner, but he may as well be the leader with the amount of respect that he commands in each member of the village. It was the worst winter ever seen, trapping many of the citizens in their homes. The temperatures were bloody cold, and the thick layers of snow on the ground made travel impossible. Soon they ran out of food. It wasn't clear how they'd lost so much so quickly. Some thought perhaps it had been stolen, but it became obvious that if they were to survive the winter, they would need to find more food. For a while, no one was willing to step forward. Finally, one brave man named Anson Miller volunteered to go into the cold forest and hunt for food, to go into the winter wood. As he says winter wood, the silence that befalls each of you seems even quieter in the night. You know of the winter woods. They're just past the creek. None of you dare enter unless absolutely necessary. He continues. Anson was a woodsman. He had lived in the village since its conception. Anson's wife, Kate, was a talented seamstress and the town's music teacher. One frigid December day, Anson set off into winter wood, carrying his axe and only what he needed for the day's hunt. But he was never to return. After a few days, Anson's wife, Kate, was distraught. She blamed the other villagers for her husband's disappearance. "Cowards!" she shouted at them. "All of you are cowards. Now you die here." The villagers assumed that Kate cursed them. They thought Anson had fallen victim to the relentless winter, and they began to hole up in their houses, their wooden homes. One by one, whole families began to die, first of starvation and then of sickness, a sickness that had swept across the village. Beside themselves with fear and hopelessness, the villagers began to believe that Kate had put them under this curse for sending Anson into the woods alone. Yes, surely she was a witch. The villagers began harassing poor Kate. She quickly became the village outcast. By the time the weather broke, nearly half the villagers were dead. And so it was that when spring came, there was nearly 100 funerals, and the village cemetery swelled. After Anson's disappearance, Kate rarely left her cottage. Villagers claimed to hear the poor woman talking to herself in the dead of night, when all else was quiet. The village children dared each other to knock on the widow's door and run away. They would dig up her plants and throw rocks at her cottage. They treated her terribly. And the widow's spite for the community grew. Almost 1 year to the day after that terrible winter, a young boy said that he saw a figure on the far side of the creek next to Winter Wood. A ghostly vision of the deceased Anson. They investigated, of course, but none dared venture too far into the woods to dispute the boy's claims. Fear was planted in the minds of the villagers, and rumors of the woods began to spread. Haunted. One winter night, not long after, The village was startled awake by a blood-curdling scream. Some left their homes just in time to see Kate Miller run into the winter wood, hollering and screaming at the top of her lungs, a ranting, raving nonsense that sent chills down any onlooker's back. Some say she went mad because of the mischief the town's children laid upon her. Others say she saw the ghost of her dead husband. The villagers considered Kate's disappearance to be good riddance, and no one looked for the widow. She was never seen again. Before long, he grabs a stick and pokes the fire, sending embers once again into the night sky. Her name was all but forgotten, save in campfire tales like this one, of the first winter that befell our small village. However, legend still says on cold winter nights, if you listen closely, you can still hear her screams echoing through Winterwood. Egon stands, abruptly almost. A few of the people sitting around the fire sort of sit back a little bit. And he takes the stick out of the fire. It's glowing embers. He holds them up next to his face, and you can see it illuminated in an orange light. That's the tale of the first winter. What say you each? Time for bed, maybe? And he sort of smiles a little bit, as no one said a single word.
After a tale like that, I'm sure we'll all have wonderful dreams.
Remus, I'm sure you've heard that story before.
Oh yes, many times. My father shared it with myself and my brother years ago, when we were but boys. But, seemed you put a bit of a flair to it, your own personal touch. Never heard it quite told like that.
Well, you know me. It's about adding a little bit of flair to a cold night such as tonight. What say you, Emily? Have you heard a story? You're about as old as I am.
Egon, you know better than this. To telling stories late at night to scare the children.
It's not just the children who are scared. I have no shame in saying that the winter woods chill my bones as well.
Certainly, but you put such a, well, as Remus put it, a spin. It's dramatics. And I have work to do. Excuse me.
As we all do. It'll be an early morning tomorrow. What say you, Peter? To bed as well, or are you going to stay by the firelight longer?
Peter leans down and picks up a small, splintered twig from the edge of the fire pit and puts it in his mouth, scrapes his teeth. I have heard this story before, and yes, you do embellish, I will say, though I will not go into the winter wood. I fear that it is too true, and I don't have that kind of, how you say, courage.
I think you give yourself too little credit, friend. Luckily, none of us need to venture into the winter wood. We have plenty of woods on the other side of the town. Ultimately, maybe it's better that these stories keep us out of there. There's an eerie chill that comes from those woods. And what he says is true. Everyone at one point in their life growing up in this small village tests their mettle, walking only a few steps into the winter wood. And whether it be the middle of summer or the dead of winter, it always feels colder within the woods. The canopy of trees block out almost all sun. The trees themselves are barren of most branches, creating slats between the deadfall of leaves. And each of you has your own tale, short or long, of your time within the winter woods, and each of you wishes not to return anytime soon. Egon steps and excuses himself from the fire and heads towards his small house within the village.
I will stay by the fire tonight for some time. I feel very comfortable, and it's been a cold day.
Will you need any more firewood? I can fetch some from the shack, if you wish.
Well, of course, but we can go together if you are staying. What
Very
about
well.
you, Emily?
No, I don't think so, unfortunately. I have some domestic chores at home.
Emily, good night to you.
Good evening, both of you.
Good
And-
evening.
Emily stands and heads off into the darkness.
And Emily, you approach your home. What is it like?
Emily lives in a small cottage, sort of towards the outskirts of town. She lives alone, so it's fairly modest, never having taken a husband or born children. It's unremarkable, and she keeps it that way intentionally because she doesn't want to provoke any kind of ire or superstition from people. Her being an older woman, single by herself, intends to remain unremarkable, apart from giving help to the village when she can.
And how does she give help to the village?
As the midwife and occasional healer, whenever the church's attention proves inadequate, she'll set bones, that sort of thing for people.
And how does she feel about the winter woods?
As she approaches her cottage, Emily pulls her shawl a little tighter around her shoulders. Gives me the creeps, living so close to the edge of town. Bitter cold always seems to emanate from those stands of trees.
And just past where your eyes sort of fix in the darkness, you see the East Creek, which separates the winter wood from the village that you guys have lived in your entire life. The chapel sits next to the creek. Miller's Hill, a large mound, sits to the south of the village. And your eyes sort of just dart along the edges of the almost bare winter woods as you head home. Peter and Remus, you're fetching more firewood?
Aye, and as we're making our way back, I'm showing Piotr the way to my house, and I show him how to unlatch the gate. Because I've gotten to know the man a little bit more over the past couple months, and he seems to be a good man, so I trust him now to, with my firewood. And I lead him in, and I show him, I say, "This is the stack here. Please, do not take more than 4 or 5. We're trying to ration things out for the winter."
But of course, maybe I will only take 1 or 2. I'm sure we can find some other pieces of wood to burn around the fire.
Aye,
As
well,
well.
aye, definitely. And so we start grabbing wood and bringing it back.
I
And I say
stack
to Peter,
3 into my arms.
I say, "So Peter, you've been running the bakery."
Yes, I was not baker back home, but since coming here, I have become the baker. My family, they are very good at many things, and I learned to bake when I come here, and I'm the only person in town that bakes the bread, so...
Your family did not come here with you.
No, they did, but sad they died. The winters are very, very harsh. It sounds like
yes.
someone's laughing at me.
It's just the trees breaking in the wind.
It's the winter wood. It listens to us. Why are you the chopper of wood?
Well, it's been many years now since I've taken on this responsibility. Wood needs to be chopped. Winters are cold, as you said, and I'm terribly sorry about your family. We arrive at the fire, and I place my wood back in the pit and blow on it, stoke it back up.
And sparks rise into the night sky. Again, it's relatively cold for October, and you know from winters past that this winter is going to be a particularly harsh one, and you've made reserves of wood to make sure that everyone can withstand the winter. Your job has been extremely effective to help the village through these times.
I have had some difficult times myself, and if you ever need anything, you can come and ask. Do not be afraid.
Thank you. And if you ever need a shoulder to put your tears on, please don't be afraid to speak to me.
I won't be afraid. Now, Peter, I do want to say one thing. You seem awfully superstitious about these woods.
Yes, they are listening to us.
Ah,
If you look, you feels like there are eyes that come out. And I look across, and there's like kind of a meadow filled with mist, and then you can barely hear the river running just beyond the field, and then beyond that is like this dark, and it's not dark enough yet that you can still see the tops of the trees against the twilight.
Hmm.
You know,
Peter, I will be the first to tell you that these woods are dangerous, but not for the reasons that the townsfolk will have you believe. Bears,
Really?
yes. Wolves, indeed. Forest fires, definitely something to be careful of, and something that I am aware of and leery of every single day. But these tales that Aegon tells us, like you say, he embellishes.
And Remus sort of scoffs a bit, and as you continue staring at the fire, Peter, and past the floating embers towards the edge of the winter woods. And eventually you guys talk some more and decide to head to bed. That night, each of you sort of dream on the story that Egon told. Some of you have heard it before, some maybe just pretended to. But you do remember hearing the tale of Kate Miller and her scream, how it can be heard in the deepest, darkest depths of the winter wood. And as you lie in your slumber, each of you tossing and turning, the scream echoes through your mind, particularly Emily. You can hear it, a blood-curdling scream, a scream of loss and despair. And as your eyes open, your small home filled with light the next morning, you hear the scream, but not in your dream. It sounds like it's coming from the house next door.
Emily throws back her coverlet, pulls on a dressing gown, quickly covers her head in her shawl, slips her feet into some boots, and opens the door to her cottage, looks all around.
And as you exit, the morning mist is still clinging to the grass. The sky is gray and filled with fog. You can still smell last night's fire in the air, wet with the morning dew, and that chill still lingers as your breath blooms upon exiting your house. And you turn towards the house next door, the Ellis house. You know that Laura, Frederick, and their daughter Patience all occupy this house, and the scream most definitely came from there. However, now you don't hear anything.
And I don't see anything moving around outside either.
No, the morning is still.
Emily quickly trudges over and knocks on the door. Hello?
And you hear a shuffling inside and hushed voices speaking, and you hear a low tone, the tone of Frederick, Patience's father, or sorry, Laura's father. Sorry, Patience is the mother, Laura is the daughter. Laura's father, Frederick. And after a moment, the door opens and you see the face of Patience, the mother. She looks distraught, her eyes red and wet with tears, and upon seeing you, she... How well do you know her? What's your relationship with Patience?
I probably helped with Laura's birth. Patience, I feel like she is kind of a more devout woman than I. When we attend church, she's the kind of woman who steals a sidelong glance to see if you know all the words to the prayer that everyone is saying together. She's a good woman, but she has this seed of pride in her that has kind of prevented Emily and Patience from having ever become close friends.
And yet, with this staunchness, you see it melt instantaneously at seeing your face. While she opens the door with that same staunchness that you've come to expect almost, she throws the door open and embraces you for the first time maybe since the birth of her daughter. And she begins sobbing into your shoulder.
Patience? Is something the matter? What can
Laura,
I do for you?
Something's dreadfully wrong with Laura. Please, Emily. And she walks you into the small sitting room, and you see Frederick at the kitchen table, his head in his hand, his eyes wet with tears as well. And as he sees you, he sort of turns away, trying to hide them.
Good morning, Frederick. What is the problem? How can I be of help?
She's sick. Something's wrong with her. And Patience walks over to Frederick and places a hand on his shoulder, and she looks up towards you, Emily, and says, Laura's not well. Please, you must help us.
Of course, certainly. Well, she just, and I know the layout of their house from having been there previous. I know that there's a small bedroom that the three of them share, and seeing that neither of them gets up to move to stop me, I walk into their small bedroom.
As you enter the small bedroom, you're immediately enveloped in the scent of deep iron, the scent of blood that you've come to recognize very well. There's a moisture in the air of a night filled with sweating and screaming. And as you approach the end of Laura's small bed, you see her body shaking. You walk towards her slowly at first. Not much startles you, Emily, through all you've seen, all the lost children, all the miscarriages, and yet something about approaching Laura in her bed strikes you to the bone. You see the frail young girl shaking under a thin blanket. You see the veins in her neck and face dark, and clutched beneath her hands you see blood from her chest as she's trying to sort of hold it down. It's not pouring, but you can see it's wet with blood, and she looks at you and just says, help me, before her mother enters the room and begins screaming again. And this scream is loud enough to alert the rest of the village as well, and Remus and Pietre, you both awaken hearing the same scream.
Well, I make my way there right away. I can see other townsfolk stepping out of their homes, and the man to the left of me, the neighbor, he closes the door behind his family and says, "No, wait here." And then we walk off together. And I see Peter approaching as well, I imagine.
Peter is an early riser, already dressed properly, heading to his bakery. And he sees everybody walking, but he tends to not concern himself with too much. So he happens to spot Remus approaching him. Good morning, Remus. What is the problem? Why is everybody walking to the house?
Can you hear it? And we hear the screams.
You do hear it again. Again, and you can hear clearly where it's sort of come from, as you even see at this point. And from your perspective, Emily, after she sees you standing over her daughter, she again is overcome with grief and runs out of the house into the laneway. And
Emily shouts after her, "Water! Fetch water right now!"
So who's screaming? Is it Patience or Laura?
It was Patience, the mother, who's just, again, overcome with grief. And the father, who's sort of leaning in the doorway, nods to you, Emily, and leaves. And actually goes to the house across the way just to grab water, because it's quicker than fetching it from the creek. And eventually you all arrive, and you see Aegon also arrive too, and he sort of backs a lot of villagers. And Emily, while you're in the room with Laura, what do you do?
Emily has knelt by the bed. She's checking Laura's temperature first with the back of her wrist against the child's head, and then oh, it's okay, Laura, please just let me see you here, that you're bleeding, love. And she pulls the child's hands away from her chest to see what wound she's concealing. And
you can see that that someone has tried to bandage it, that assuming the mother has tried to bandage it, but it's bled right through. And it looks to be sort of a superficial wound almost, but it's bleeding relatively
steadily,
lot.
like it's not clotting. So.
Exactly, yeah.
Are there used bandages throughout the room? Like people, we don't have very much spare linens as a poor village, so they would have had to be using, the bed linens from the parents' bed and what few towels they would have in the house. We don't have Band-Aids or anything.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just there's a mess of like a few wet bandages on the floor, and then she's just clutching a now soaking piece of linen as well. It's very few, so they need to be sterilized and boiled. Or whatever.
Laura, child, what happened to you? What happened to you?
And she looks at you with pained eyes and sort of grunts through, and you can almost see it. It's like a passing, almost like a migraine. Something shakes through her body in pain as she sort of just screams, which again alerts the people now standing outside. And Remus and Peter, you're standing outside as you see Aegon sort of talking to the people next to Patience, who has sort of explained the situation to him too, and he's sort of saying, "There's nothing to see. Laura is ill. We are going to look into it." And he sort of nods to you, Remus, knowing that you've been around for a fair amount of time too. And he says, "There's nothing to see." And most of the people sort of turn around and try to get a look, but they see Patience crying, and they turn about and try to go about their days as Remus and Peter walk up.
And I would probably do the same thing. I look at Remus and I say, "It looks like Aegon and maybe Emily is helping out. I'm going to go to the bakery and continue my day. It's probably nothing."
Well, 1 minute, Peter. They might need help from us.
Sure.
Well, you do know, Peter, that in times of trouble, that you end up being the baker. You have typically the most linens. And you notice almost immediately that the mother, Patience, has blood on her hands. And oftentimes, if there is ever a wound or an accident, they turn to you, having the most sanitized linens, to sort of help out that way.
Wait, why do I have a lot of linens?
Well, because when you bake your bread, you need to let them rise, and you cover them with I'm trying to include you. Just
you
go
I'm putting up barriers for you here to see if we can overcome them
Thanks.
other ways. But okay.
Well, no, hey, fair enough. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Totally welcome to. Okay, so Remus, however, you do see Patience, and Aegon sort of nods to you, and you can see that he's looking for a bit of aid in your wisdom as well, maybe.
And I see
herbs for the pain. The town herbalist, I believe she's out, actually.
He sort of walks into the house and motions you forward.
Okay, I follow.
At this moment, I see what's the father's name? Fred or Frank?
Frederick, who's walking back from the house with a pitcher of water.
Yes, and I see him walking back with a pitcher of water, and this pitcher is like a trough for pigs. He's got a pitcher that's for the trough water for pigs, and it's got like hair and like stuff hanging out of it. And I say, "Oh my God, I have fresh water that I use for baking. I will bring good water." And I run to my bakery, and
he sort of stops, and he's like, and he tosses the water aside.
The filtration system, and I come back with this beautiful glass jar of clean fresh water, the cleanest water in town,
and he
and glass,
no,
yes.
and he
some fresh blankets for covering the bread. That's what I normally use them for.
and he takes it from you with red eyes, and he goes, I'm sorry, Peter, you're right. I wasn't thinking. I almost gave this water. Please, come inside. I could use a friend. And you and Frederick, Peter, are relatively close. He's probably the only person in town that you have a close relationship. Why is that?
Because Frederick and we came approximately at the same time, except my family all perished in the first winter about 15 years ago, and his family, well, one survived, and he met Laura, and then they had a child, and I've always cherished our friendship and the travel across the great American plains to this place.
In England. I don't really know.
Are we in England?
I don't. Honestly, I have no idea. New England, probably. So you're right.
Yeah.
So you enter as well with Frederick on tow, and Remus is already in there speaking with Aegon and Patience, who is sitting in a chair at the kitchen table. And Aegon sort of nods to you, Peter, and continues speaking to you, Remus, and just says, Patience here has let us know that Laura is ill. Emily's in there looking right now. And he takes the pitcher of water from you and begins walking towards the door, Remus, but you notice that Aegon is sort of hesitant to enter the room. And you know, as the village does, that he's lost a daughter similar to Laura's age the previous year. And you can see him sort of hesitate at the door to enter the room with Emily.
Aegon, here. Allow me. Sit down. I'll let you know how it goes.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. And he sits down and comforts Patience. And you enter with the pitcher, and Emily, you see Remus enter with the pitcher of water.
Remus, thank you. Just here beside the bed.
Right. The fire, how's it doing? Can I take a look at the hearth?
It seems fine.
It seems fine, okay.
Yeah. And so Laura looks at you, Emily, and looks at Remus. And she sort of sits up to drink from the pitcher, and you can see her in pain as she tries to. And Remus, you also see what Emily now sees, that there's a wound on her chest. It almost looks like it's like she's been stabbed with a blunt object, almost. But it's not that deep, but it is bleeding a lot, as Emily points out to you.
Did she tell you what happened, Emily?
She's having trouble speaking right now. If you wouldn't mind, please, getting some water on to boil. I'd like some warm water to cleanse the wound.
Of course. And I grab a pot that's in the corner of the room, not the chamber pot, and I put it over the fire.
Fart.
And while this is going on, Peter puts his arm around Frederick and brings him closer to Patience, and he says, "Here," and from his pocket he retrieves a half a loaf of bread, and he says, "Here, eat this. It will make you feel better, and maybe some tea. I will put tea on," and I add a little bit more to the hearth of the fire.
And you can see, Peter, that Laura is in no state to really react, but Patience and Frederick appreciate the hospitality, and they sort of look at you with warm regard as you try to help as much as you can.
Please, Emily knows what she's doing. Please, relax.
Laura, if there's anything, what happened to you? And she turns to Frederick and Patience. Patience, where was she? When did this occur?
She came in last night. She was all stirred up. She seemed like she'd had a fright, so I told her to go right to bed without anything. She went to bed and she cried out many times in the middle of the night, but she's had night terrors, you know of that. I thought nothing of it. When I woke this morning, she was bleeding. I tried desperately to stop it, and I screamed, and that's when you came in. Laura, what happened? She sort of says, and you can tell she can't really stay in the room for that long, thinking that she's going to lose her only daughter. Again, death is so common in this village. You also know that they've lost a few children before Laura. And Laura, sort of, with sort of the water to quench her thirst, and you dressing the wound again with fresh bandages. She nods to you, Emily, and out of the Ellises, you have probably the strongest relationship with Laura, while Patience might be looking at you for not knowing the hymn. Laura is usually the one that might catch your glance and smile at missing the same words as you. So she does feel a connection towards you. And she sort of tries to sit up as she can and lies back down and just talks in a frail voice as loud as she can. It was last evening, last night, before the sun had set. I left home and headed towards the creek at the edge of the village. I leaned down to fill my pitcher, and I paused. I felt like there were eyes on me, and I looked up to the far edge of the creek, by the winter woods, and there was a woman standing there. And you can tell as she's retelling, she's shaking for fear of memory, and her eyes are darting up towards the dimly lit ceiling of the room. The woman asked for a drink of water, but I was quite startled as I screamed, and I ran home as fast as I could, but before I could reach my door, I fell to my knees. I started coughing. I could barely breathe. I tried to tell Mother about the woman that I had seen, but I could barely. And you could tell it's difficult for her to continue. And from the doorway, Patience, again the staunch religious woman who is probably the most fearful of the winter wood, says, "It was the witch. The witch has cursed my girl. The witch has cursed my Laura." And she looks over past you, Emily, towards her daughter who's bleeding, and again as she sort of writhes in pain, blood begins pouring from her fingers as she tries to hold down the bandage on her wound in her chest.
Peter is going to be sick, and he goes for the front door, and he opens the front door, gasping for breath of fresh air. Which is no.
And as you're gasping for air, Edgar Barry, one of the butchers of the town, sort of says, "Peter, you all right? What's wrong with Laura? What's wrong with the Ellis family? We heard there was a scream." He throws up at his boots, says, "Jesus Christ, Peter."
It's nothing. She's sick. We'll figure it out and we'll tell you. Thank you.
All right. And he kind of walks off and carrying a bucket towards the church. And as you see him walk towards the church, you see Father Lockley begin walking towards the house, having heard the commotion. He walks at sort of a slow pace, with no real intention to arrive on time.
My eyes go wide, and I run towards Father Lockley. Father Lockley, you have to come quickly. The child, Laura, she's seen something. Come,
all right,
quick.
all right. I'll be there in a moment.
No, quickly! And I grab him by his forearm.
Quickly. And he continues his pace, and he's an older man, again, older than most, and a very strict man. And he approaches the Ellis household as Frederick sort of turns to him and Patience. Remus and Emily, what are you doing?
Remus has mostly been sitting quietly, just wide-eyed at the whole thing, feeling a little overwhelmed, unsure of what to do. But he looks to Emily with
Remus,
bewildered eyes.
That pot of water, is it nearly at a boil?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Thank you.
With a cloth, I bring the pot over. Careful, it's hot.
Thank you. She takes the pot and sets it down. Laura, now, this may hurt just a little bit, but please, if you wouldn't mind. And she takes the child's hands away and dampens a cloth in the hot water and starts wiping away the old blood from the wound, trying to see how deep it is. So she's cleaning the child and trying to examine the wound.
And as you look at the wound, it seems unlike any other wound you've seen. It's about yay big, and it's not that deep, and it sort of almost comes down to a very shallow point.
This is beyond strange. Dear, stop fidgeting. And Laura's kind of thrashing around a little bit with the pressure and the tension on her chest. Now, please, I just need to pack the wound with some herbs. Patience. And she turns towards the door as she sees Father Lockley come in. Oh, Father! It's good to see you here.
What's happened here?
Laura has seen a vision somewhere in the woods, and she injured herself somehow on her way back home last night. I can't manage to stop the bleeding. It's passing strange.
And he walks over, and with an odd confidence, he puts his hand on her forehead and looks down at her wound, and he sort of takes her hand off of the wound which she's been clutching, and he looks at her eyes as she does, at first resists and then sees his look and sort of gives way as he takes the hand off, and he examines her for a long moment without saying anything. And the tension is palpable as you look. He acts differently than you've ever seen him before. And as he places her hand back on her chest and removes his hand from her forehead, he turns towards you, Emily, and you, Remus, and he nods towards the door and exits to the main room with a certainty.
Lord, just a moment. I need to speak with Father Lockley. Please, just hold this here to your chest, like so, and we'll be back in just a moment. Try to breathe slowly, darling.
And she does, and she sort of wails in pain as she holds it against, and you exit to the main room and shut the door behind you. And Father Lockley is sort of looking out the very small window in the front of the kitchen, very contemplatively, before addressing everyone in the room, which now consists of Remus, Emily, Peter, Egon, and the parents. And he sort of stops and turns back and says, "Your daughter's been cursed. I've seen it before, many, many years ago. We lost her, the one that was cursed. Does she remember anything that happened to her?"
She was speaking about having been at the river. She was fetching water, and she looked up, saw a woman. The woman, and she turns to Remus, asked for a drink, yes? And then she was frightened, screamed, and ran home. She fell, I believe, which is where I think she maybe sustained some kind of wound. She was too frightened to have realized, and then she came home.
That wound there is not caused by any object that we possess. I've seen this 30 odd years ago. I know many of you don't believe it, but in that wood is a witch. I seen her with my own eyes many years ago. Back then, we tried to stop it. We couldn't in time. There's a way to lift the curse, and it lies within the winter wood. I'm sorry, Frederick, but your best bet is to try to get in there yourself, or ask people for help, and try to lift it. And he says it with such a confidence and such an air that chills you each to your bone.
I was hoping he wasn't going to say the witch. It can't be true.
With
A witch.
With all due respect, Father, even if we do get into the winter woods and find this witch, what are we supposed to do?
Wish I could tell you. The truth is, I don't know. Myself, my friend Corman, and Arthur, 30 odd years ago, tried into that wood to save a young girl who'd fallen the same happenstance as young Laura here. We failed. I lost Corman and Arthur in that wood, and I was the only one to escape alive. But what we found in those woods, what we experienced, it was without equal. They are powerful, and they are to be feared. But your answer lies within there.
Father Lockley, they? I'm sorry, it's hard enough for me to imagine dealing or bargaining with a single witch. Many? What can we expect?
I wish I could tell you. From when we traveled into the woods, we were racked with dreams and bizarre images, creatures that haunted and followed our every turn. I'm sorry. And he's sort of, at this point, you can tell that he knows what he's talking about, but you can tell that as he looks towards Frederick and Patience, you can tell that he already assumes Laura is doomed to die. And he says, the witch in those woods has cursed your daughter. And that's as simple as it is. And he goes towards the door.
I stop him. I put a hand up. I said, no, you know something. You know things that you're not telling us. If you have a way to save this girl, you tell us right now.
I don't. I can.
So you just expect us to go into those woods?
I don't expect you to do anything. I think there's not much hope for Laura. And I'm sorry, Frederick, and I'm sorry, Patience. But I think her turn is done. I can give you anything you need. If you want a blessing or holy water that I've had.
I was going to say, bless this house. Please. At least bless the house.
Those woods are planted by the devil himself. She is under a spell that Satan only can cast. If you find that witch and you kill her, maybe Laura have a chance. And he does.
What weapons have we, Father? What can we use in this battle?
And he sort of thinks for a second, and he says, anything that would work against one of Satan's followers. Oh, I've holy water at the chapel. I'll happily give you each. And like I said, I'll bless you. And he takes a moment and he blesses each of you individually to give you a boon. And he gives you a bottle, sorry, just a benefit. And a bottle of holy water. He gives you one bottle to share.
Thank you, Father.
And he exits.
Thank you, Father.
And Frederick and Patience are racked with grief, and they turn towards the three of you. Please, is all that Patience says. Please.
Patience, I'm not sure. I think Father Lockley is probably acting in his, well, within his realm of expertise, but I'm most useful to Laura here at her bedside, tending her wounds, seeing that she's well cared for. This is my purview. Perhaps these gentlemen might go on some sort of quest into the woods to see about a demon.
Nay, we need you. Can I speak with you for a second, Emily?
Certainly. Excuse us, please.
And I step outside and I gesture for Pieter to come if he wishes.
I turn to Frederick and I look back at Ramus and I go with Ramus and Emily.
We can't possibly do this. A witch.
Well, don't worry, Pieter. There's a solution to this. Emily, you know that Father Lockley and I have our differences, but a witch in the woods, cursed. It's a little much. Tell me, what are her symptoms? You know medicine better than anyone in this town. What are her symptoms?
The
Shallow
child
breathing?
She's not feverish, but she's breathing hard, as if she's been running a long way. Her heart is beating quickly, and of course the blood loss, that's the most troubling symptom. If we cannot prevent her from bleeding any longer, the child doesn't stand more than a day, I don't predict.
You've dealt with these things before, am I right? There are herbs that we can get that will slow a heart rate, to calm a body, and make the bleeding less profuse.
Yes.
Perhaps this would help give her a fighting chance.
Yes. Unfortunately, with the fevers that the village had a couple of weeks ago, my stores are quite low, and the herbalist is out of town. I would have to fetch them myself.
Would you recognize these plants if you saw them?
Yes, they grow wild, though not in abundance.
Well, in that case, this is what I propose. And I turn to Pyotr. The three of us go into the woods. Daylight. We spend a day out there. We try to find as much of this herb as we can. We bring it back, and hopefully this buys us a little bit more time, and we can get more herbs and give her body a fighting chance. As far as a witch goes, if we run into a witch, then I'll stick an axe in her.
Pyotr, do you have any experience with supernatural entities?
No, I don't. In fact, the father, he speaks of witches. The father speaks of witches. You say it like it's not true, but he would not speak of witches if he did not believe it.
He speaks of many things that are far more ridiculous than witches, Pyotr.
Ooh, burn.
Emily, you talk about the herbs to Remus, but in the back of your mind, something about Laura's illness scares you to the point that maybe you don't readily accept Father Lockley's solution, but you don't feel confident that this can be something just staved off by the means that you have at your disposal.
I think she has this kind of preternatural optimism that is necessary, or else she's going to be dragged into a dark depression with how many hopeless cases she has to tend to. Everyone she sees is curable.
True.
Even though the likelihood is so small.
I don't know if I can do this. And I run back in and I look at Frederick and Patience. I don't. And as I begin to say this to each of them, I can't get the words out because I see the pain in their eyes. And I shouldn't be doing two things at once, sorry.
Are you tying your shoe?
And
scratching it.
We will find the witch and we will save your daughter. If it's the last thing I do on this earth. And I can't nail down my accent. I just can't do it.
And Patience almost immediately embraces you and says, thank you, Peter. And Frederick,
thank me when I return with the witch's head. Until then, wish us good luck.
Perfect. Okay.
If just one moment, please. I must equip myself back at my cottage. I will be just one moment. And Emily heads over next door to grab her satchel, small belt knife, and some taller boots. Did you say it's wintertime? There's snowy.
It's October.
Okay. So yes, snow, no
cold
snow.
October.
Right now, no. There's only sort of like the morning frost that typically melts.
Right.
By mid-afternoon.
So she's grabbing a short knife.
Chill enough for boots, cold?
I'm just curious how should we dress?
Hoop earrings. Hoop earrings are necessary.
Oh, I changed my earrings.
All right, and Peter, I say, would you like to come back to my place? I have some supplies from when my brother was here. if you wish to join me.
I will come with you. Do you have alcohol? I need a drink.
I thought maybe you would, with your dealings with yeast. and
I do,
barley.
in my bakery. And maybe we stop there first.
That sounds like a good idea. I don't know what happened to my accent. Now I'm a rough American.
Rough American.
Rough American.
So we swing by the bakery, and the smell is... It's got a very nice, nostalgic smell. Oh yeah, I've got some too that I'm going to grab.
Here. And I pass it.
And then, is there anything else you want to grab here before we head to the lodge?
I will just grab some of this camping stuff. My blanket roll and maybe some bread. And I stuff some bread into a satchel along with a small knife and a bedroll and a small piece of rope.
Was this the equipment you used when you came here 15 years ago?
No, this is for the late nights when I stay up all night baking.
Oh. Dedicated man, dedicated to your craft. Shall we?
Yes, and maybe we can get some more tools and weapons at your place of business.
I have just the thing. And back at the lodge, I toss Piotr an axe. Ever used one of these?
Do you catch
Just
it?
throw an axe at him?
And I catch it, lengthwise. I grew up in Siberia, and we always chopped wood. It feels good on my hands again.
Good. Well, hopefully we'll only need it for chopping wood. Now,
I swing it, and with one solid swoop, I crack open a large piece of wood.
A log?
Thank you. A large log. Of wood.
A large.
Do you ever,
Split it.
if you ever have a break in between baking, I sure could use you around here, especially this time of year.
Thank you.
And I grab an axe myself, and then I go in the back and I grab some nice deer skin.
Just for a
leathers.
snack.
Yeah, some smoked deer skin. And yeah, and get some camping stuff as well. Just a little
Coleman stove.
yeah, Coleman stove, rope that we can tie our food up in trees.
2-man tent, insulated cooler.
Yeah.
In my
We put all the
pocket,
bruise.
Brewskis.
I pull out, look at my gold cross necklace, and I put it back in my pocket very safely, stowed away for later. But it is my holy cross.
Is that what gives you
From my
direction?
childhood. Huh?
Is that what gives you direction, Peter?
yes, I believe it will protect me in times of great need,
And with a
especially
smirk,
against a witch.
I grab a little necklace hanging on the wall, and attached, I have something similar. And on it
What
is
is
a
that?
compass.
Ah,
An old compass in brass.
this is incredible technology.
I was just to
They
say.
had these back in the 1800s, right?
Yeah.
That was my father's.
Probably.
I honestly don't know.
They've had them since the 1600s.
I'm more thinking
Yeah?
like
Oh,
a
you're saying
portable
that
one.
for fact. Okay.
Portable? Of course.
Well, I mean like one that you'd wear around your neck.
Well, they did have like old compasses that were like a big like globe that they used
Yeah.
Size
for
of a
navigating on
stove.
ships.
Yeah, for like
But I
ships.
think by the
and shit.
1800s,
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
200
Probably.
years to make it small.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Get your shit together.
all right. Well, whether or
Well,
not
think
I have
1800,
that-
1900s, they had a car. They had to have had compass by the 1800s. Only 100 years between having a compass and a car.
No, it wasn't just. It's more about like also whether you'd have it.
bearing compass.
Shut up!
1728. These were common use by early 18th century and are described as 1728.
Oh, boom.
Oh, but it's a big
Shock
one.
value.
No, this is so. It's like a Flavor Flav clock.
You pull it out with
that's
both
great.
hands. You're like, let's see what direction we're going.
It looks like
a big
it wasn't. It looks like a big one, yeah. 18th century bearing compass.
That's fine. You can have it anyway. Honestly, I was just more curious. I honestly don't know.
It's a two-handed compass.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, because when we played Call of Cthulhu, remember we had the whole discussion about the pen light. Same thing. It's like, when did the pen light come? I sometimes it's interesting when these things that you think, because like, yeah, it makes sense to like they had cars in it, but sometimes it's like, yeah, but it still didn't get invented till like 1923 or something weird like that.
Forever.
Yeah, it's just weird. I'm just curious, like when that compass actually was kind of commonplace. Anyway, definitely probably World War One. Anyway, okay, yeah, you grab it for sure. When are you guys planning on heading into the winter wood?
Right now, we need to find these herbs as soon as possible. It is essential for Emily's health, or for Lauren's health. I'm Emily. Did not sleep enough last
Are these herbs for you, Emily?
Also, I need a few herbs. My personal stash is depleted.
Perfect, I found it. What have you found? You found the healing herbs? No, this is for me.
The sky is filled with a low hanging fog. It's almost completely gray, and you can't see the sun. Yet the village is illuminated in a haze. As you approach the East Creek, Peter, you notice something lying on its side.
Like a person?
No, you see it's the... Oh, God.
Paddle?
No.
Boat?
It is the pitcher
Water.
Which?
Pitcher.
that Laura left. And you remember her saying that she came down to the East Creek to fill up a pitcher last night before bed.
There. And I point to the pitcher. There is the pitcher, which Laura came down to fill her water before going to bed. And I walk up to it. She must have looked right here across the water there. And I point across the water, and I kind of look in a panoramic sort of way up and down the bank of the river.
And while you stand on this side, the three of you sort of take a look, and you see the picture knocked over. You see footprints. You see the creek, and you see the far side of the wood. And while it is a gray day, it's still lit with the sun shining through the fog. And yet the winter wood looks still and quiet, dark and thick. And it's a wood that can be peered into. There's no line of bushes that hide what's within. It's a wood that you can stare on straight through for a long time before it becomes faded in just darkness. And the woods are beyond eerie for that reason alone. The abyssal black that lies only beyond 10 trees in sends a chill up your spine as the three of you sort of share a nervous glance towards the far side of the creek.
I turn to the other two, and I, specifically to Emily, I say,
I do not think we will find many plants in there. If we go, I feel we must kill the witch.
Well, I'll keep my eye out either way.
Please.
October. There's likely to yet be some underbrush.
But look, there never is any underbrush.
and I point across the creek and to the empty, hollow woods. That almost seems to echo my voice.
Is there a bridge that we are likely to cross? Or, I mean, clearly people don't go into the woods very often. We're going to have to wade through.
Yeah, it's not that deep, though. There's a part where it's relatively shallow.
Haven't you seen any movies? They just walk in water. It's just perfectly fine just to trudge through water.
Yeah, it's like so many times they don't give a shit.
Shin
Right?
high.
Just like, whoosh.
You ever seen that? I don't get that.
Like,
Like, let's cross this creek.
Walk around all day long with wet skirt.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Be like, I want to get a
When I
soaker.
cross a river, I like leap across rocks or something.
That's right.
People in movies just walk right through the water. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing?
Kevin Costner.
To maintain the tone.
It is. Yeah, it's to look badass.
You never see like the realists realistic ones were just like, oh, I'm gonna jump across the creek. Just
Yeah.
a slow thought, and Alex jumping across.
Get a soaker.
So Peter trudges through the water across.
Bravely.
Typical movie style.
Yeah. Emily pulls her skirts up real high.
Perfect. And the three of you
Emily.
make your way across
Please.
the creek, unless you do it in a specific way too, Remus. Do you,
How
want
do
to,
you do it?
do you want to describe how you do it?
How do you go across the creek?
Like this.
He's not listening. He's reading.
Oh, me?
Way cooler.
Yeah, you.
Oh, me? Oh, okay.
Buddy.
I wanted to give you a chance because they described it a special way.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna hop across at like a shallow point. And like I'll just like barely miss, barely not make it. Yeah, yeah.
You
And
fall back.
a moment of childlike glee.
Yes.
Perfect. The three of you stand at the edge of the winter wood. The village behind you almost looks pleasant and inviting. It seems like maybe even the fog has started to move past, and yet before you in the woods they're thick with fog, and you share one last look amongst each other. And you each think back onto the first time you entered the winter wood. Emily, what was your experience of entering the winter wood the first time? How old were you?
I was a young girl, an adolescent. I was 13 years old. I was with some of my girlfriends. Patience was there, actually, and we were daring each other who would go deepest into the woods. We had crossed the river, and 4 of us stood, and Patience was the first to go into the wood, but she went the shallowest, just a few feet, and she stood triumphant as if she was not a coward. And then Bernice.
Yeah,
What'd you say? Then what?
Bernice.
Bernice,
Oh, Bernie's.
Bernice
Bernice.
Portroy.
the younger,
Mm.
she went farther in. She walked for a minute or two and then hollered at us. And not to be outdone, I moved past Patience and beyond Bernice into the woods and walked until I could not see anyone anymore. And the twilight closed in around me. It was strange. I'd been in woods before with my mother, but had never felt like I had been in such a quiet wilderness. Not a sound of a bird or a small mammal creeping through the undergrowth. Just me and my heartbeat in the twilight. And I could feel myself getting more and more agitated. Just feel the fear creeping up on me like it was some kind of monster. Till I could stand it no longer and ran all the way back. They had actually left. My friends had gone back through the river and were staying at Patience's mother's house. We're having a little bit of a get-together, and I was so afraid, having been left alone in the woods, that I went straight home. Growing up in the village here with these girls from our childhood, it's been the wood is almost like its own character. It's a villager just like any of us.
Yes. And I
And-
hear your story and I look into the woods and I say, almost like it has its own personality.
And with that, the three of you enter the winter wood. Each of you take 1 cold point. And we are going to stop there for the mid-game post.
Already!
So the way this game works,
It
it is a storytelling game, and they have 10 cold points to accumulate before death. Upon entering the woods, they receive 1 cold point. They're going to roll a d10, and they have to get above whatever their cold points currently have to succeed in any task they want. That's pretty much the rule system for Don't Walk in Winter Wood, which is a game
Yep.
by Mr. Clint Krause. It's a small independent title that I think was gifted to us, actually, by somebody possibly watching tonight. So thank you! I wish I remembered.
What Harlan's really trying to say is he forgets who gave it to us.
I did.
But what I just...
Openly admit that.
I know. I was starting to say that before you finished your sentence. But anyways, what you failed to mention about the rules is that with the increasing cold, every time you get a cold point for every time you're like scared or injured or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
You didn't mention that part.
That you have to roll above it?
No, but you didn't mention what you get a cold point.
No, I didn't. I was going to do really brief and then focus on the mid-game post to keep the flow going.
Yeah, that's all I
But you're right.
say.
No, you're right. And that's right. Anytime something bad happens, that's when you get cold points. So it does increase through various means. Absolutely right, Alex. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the INVICTUS stream. Hope you're having a good time with us tonight. I'm having a blast. Great role-playing so far, guys. I'm really excited to see what we do here. You create some really, really fantastic characters. And I hope everyone's having a good night tonight. It is, of course, an 18-plus game. If this is your first time watching the INVICTUS stream, all of our games are 18-plus. Get used to it. It is also really important that you like this video right now. Go ahead on YouTube, press the thumbs up button, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed, because we don't do ads, we don't do none of that. All we ask for is your devotion in the subscribe factor, so that we can say, look how many subscribers we got. 30. I think we're at 30. Are we past 30 yet?
What?
Subscribers?
Yeah.
Are we like 300? No, that's people on Facebook.
Oh, there's the warning. Yeah. But yes.
Yeah. Don't you guys have like...
What do you mean you guys? Us.
Y'all. All y'all.
Us.
We.
Us.
Don't we?
Yes.
We guys.
I know, I was just being funny. Welcome. I am here with the very talented Alex Guthrie, the very wonderful Joe Fallak, and the fantastic Justin Thomas James, who is currently on a pee break. Guy gets a pee break once a game. That is it. We did not do the MVP, which is something we reward for the most valuable post in the Facebook group. You can earn it by just being a part of the group. And this week, we would like to give it to... drum roll. Jose, I think Ramirez, isn't it? Ooh, shit.
Yeah.
That's your last name, right? I started saying it and I got really unconfident that was it. That is, sorry.
Ramirez.
Yes, Ramirez Ruiz. That's why you have two last names. For doing a fantastic drawing of the Undefeated. Holy shit.
So cool.
All four of our characters in fucking like cool hero poses too. I love Leah up front with like the hand
I want
out.
to see it inked like proper.
Yeah. Well, he's done drawings for... He did drawings for the Strange campaign. He's done drawings for a lot of our campaigns. So I know he took some time away from us because he had a family. But it seems like he's back, at least for this campaign. So I'm really excited to see what comes of that. But awesome job so far, dude. And thank you so much for doing that.
Welcome back.
And welcome back. Welcome back. It's funny because when we talked about doing a more long-term D&D campaign, Joe is the one who was like, hey, we should do something more long-term so people can connect with the characters. And one of the first things she said is like, people might want to draw pictures of us. And I was like, oh, yes, let's do it then. And like so far, both Jose and Rin have drawn pictures of our characters.
Rin sent me one of Leah, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, and
I haven't seen any from Lynn or Rin.
Yeah, I'll post them. You know what? I'll start a folder on Facebook for all chapters of the Undefeated, like fan art or something like that.
I was kind of waiting to see if Rin was going to post it because I didn't want to like put it out there if she didn't want to put it.
I know it's always like a middle ground, right? Like you don't know if you want to and that goes for anything. If you ever send something to us and you want it posted or shared, you just let us know, because sometimes you don't want to overstep. You don't want to be like put it out there in case you want to do it yourself, because sometimes it's nice to get the attention if you've made it. So anyway, so well done for that drawing. You win most valuable post. As I've mentioned many times, the most valuable post is the post that we sort of bring up amongst the rest in the during the week. But the mid-game post is a totally different beast entirely. That's where we stop the action as we're doing now, and we jump to the Discord channel and we ask you a question. And the first person that answer that question, or I guess of a few people, here I'm going to bring this up, will get more XP. Mid-game post.
Put the mid-game post
just below Don't Walk in the Winter Wood. So there we go.
There it is.
Just below Don't Walk in the Winter Wood, you'll see the mid-game post.
Here it is.
Let's do this for the mid-game post question, shall we? What was the name of the gentleman in the story at the beginning of this game? The legend of the first winter. There was a man who ran into the woods, and his wife, Kate, ended up being called a witch. What was his name?
I think I know this one too.
Well, you have as good a shot as anybody because you were there. Yes, that's correct, Alex. I'm very proud of you. And Joe.
Hey, I did my
Hey.
I'm sorry. Look at you guys paying attention. Hi, Tori.
Aw, hey Terry.
You have
Oh, is this your new cat?
We have we want to show you the new
The
member
new
of our
kitty?
Oh my god.
This
Hi.
is Lady.
Lady.
Hi, lady.
Luck be a lady tonight.
Luck be a lady tonight.
Justin and the ladies.
Ooh.
That's right. All right, see you guys later.
Bye, ladies.
So share your cat pictures because that's the perfect
Aw.
opportunity.
Yeah, everybody share your cat pictures.
And your dog picture.
And your dog pictures and
No,
your
no
baby
dogs.
pictures.
No dogs.
No dogs.
You know
This
what,
is just
Justin?
about cats tonight. Just
You know
cats
what?
tonight. Joe, you always make it about dogs.
What about your frogs? Frog pictures.
Yeah, I want frog
Frog-
pics.
Frogs are okay.
What about a pollywog and a bog?
Aw.
What about a blog? Your blog pics.
Today, to keep her distracted because she meows quite a bit. She's getting a lot better because we just got her on Sunday, but she meows quite a bit. So I put on an 8-hour stream of birds eating seeds and then
Oh.
flying away. Eating seeds and flying away, and she loved it. She just sat there watching it, just like
Going to work
That's
now.
great.
Put Netflix on for you.
yeah, pretty much. She's like, "Can I watch my show?"
Aw. Whenever I leave home, I put on Jazz FM for Louie so that he can
Oh.
listen to some of the greats.
That's
Hey, puppy.
And when you leave the house,
after
you put
Louis
the hat
Armstrong?
on.
Yeah, he gets his little dog drum kit out. Come up here.
Drum kit.
Yeah.
His little dog trumpet
Yeah.
Sing, sing, sing.
with a name like
This
Louis.
is my pet.
Well, let me
What?
get my pet.
Pet off. Henry is just picking him up. He's just crawling
These are
around.
my pistachios.
Pistachio nose.
Mister Pististu. I'm so happy I shared that. That's Justin. That's our thing. That's like, I remember one time you and me just like for hours like going through YouTube videos. Pistachio. It's like so funny.
What are you talking about?
There's this Justin. There's this YouTube channel. Well, there's this YouTube channel that.
Pronunciation manual.
But there
Oh,
is
I
one.
fucking love that one.
Yeah, but there's one that does like real pronunciations, right? And then there's one that does like purposely fucking
Yeah,
long
yeah.
ones. But I love the idea of somebody going to the wrong one. It makes me so excited. I'm gonna get sad. And learning a word.
Are you crying?
No, I'm not. It's very funny to me. There are certain things that tickle me. There are certain things that tickle me that I just can't explain. And that.
Can you play one for us, please?
Oh yeah, I can.
God, I want to see
Oh,
that. Can we all experience that together?
Oh, where was it? Oh no.
I know the one.
Oh, you know what? It's not gonna play it. No, I can't. It won't. I can
like
play
the
it for everyone at
pregnant one.
home. It's like the pregnant one. Pregnant one's very funny too. But I love. Oh, I fucking love so many of them. They'll hear it at home, but you guys won't hear it.
Yahoo answers. Am I pregnant?
Oh my God, Alex, that happens at work. So many people don't know how to spell the fucking word, and they're like nurses. They're
I'm
like,
pregnant.
You can listen to this on your own. Synecdoche. Synecdoche. Oh my god. Anyway, it really tickles me. And please, if you need a giggles, go and watch those because they're the giggliest.
Just watch a few of them. Because
Just
like, there's
do
some
it.
of them that you're like,
Sign-a-coded
oh, okay.
dododochi?
Oh, okay.
It's fucking hilarious. And it's just really funny. Anyway, so do that, and that's a thing that Justin and I love. I don't remember I don't know how we found that. Yeah, but the cappuccino is the most famous.
Frappuccino is pretty funny.
I love it when he does he adds on something like for rainbow, like rainbow, the blantifus rainbow.
It's like The Sims or something. It's like where they're not really saying anything, but it sounds like words. Oh fuck, man, that's funny. How are we gonna get back to serious? Anyway, well done.
Look at all these dog and cat pictures we're seeing. Ugh.
Oh, I'm in the mid game. Oh, right, the mid game post. Let's see. We got Asham. No. We got Asim. No. Rin had Anson correct. Michael and Brianna have Anson correct. Jason has Anson. Anson. Look at this guy. Look at these people listening. Okay, so we got. I'm surprised. Rin, Michael, Jason, and Megan. Yeah.
Nah, our fans are the best.
They are the best.
Especially with your campaigns, they're like, gotta remember all the names.
They know how Harlan go. All right, 1d4. And that's a 4, which means it is going to go to... oh, God. Okay? Megan? Is it Megan?
Megan Dunn?
Yeah, I'm just trying to look at your picture and not... Yeah, that's Megan. Yeah. Because Miss Deadly.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey.
My pictures weren't loading for some reason. Yeah. Megan! Well done! Round of applause. Wait for it. There we go.
Did we do MVP?
What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
MVP.
Yeah.
European.
Jose
You were
or Jose.
MVP.
MVP.
I wasn't. Who won?
Jose or Jose? I'm not sure. I think it's Jose.
I'm going to say Jose. I'm going to take a...
Stand?
Hey.
We've talked about this before. A hard J.
Maybe it's Jose Senana.
Maybe it's so Sinobobo Chico. That's but see when you're doing it to someone's but now I don't want it to be mean like we're teasing but I think if people know the context I think they get it. Okay.
Context is important.
It is. Anyway, so well done, Megan. You win the mid-game post. Well done. I'm very impressed with you guys and everybody. And look at all these little kitties. Look at all these cats and dogs. Holy shit! This is Megan's dog sitting there like what? He's got his hand on the fucking couch. It looks like he's just like Megan. We need to talk.
That's what he is like.
That's funny. I'm not an animal person, but I'm definitely more dog than cat, I think.
Oh my god. Kratos.
Zero.
Kratos.
Especially that black one.
Upset that I'm interrupting his show. Megan, what is Kratos' show?
Yeah.
Is he like a CSI dog? Or
what would be the funniest show to have?
Wait, no, it's Law & Order.
That's Law & Order.
Very different.
He's got to be into like courtroom dramas or something.
No, he's all about Big Brother.
I'm seeing this picture.
It's kind of something weird.
Like cheesy reality TV.
Oh, like Survivor.
Yeah. Lady likes that too. She was watching The Bachelorette last night.
Oh,
well, she's a lady. She wants the lady to find love, I guess.
No.
Lady is a lady, right?
The lady is a tramp.
Didn't we already sing that?
There's a lady and a
Luck
tramp.
is-
Then there's Luck Be a Lady, and then there's Hey lady, you got the love I need.
Zeppelin?
Oh, so much, yeah. Oh, darling, darling, darling. I'm drinking beet beer.
What?
Cool.
Yo, he's cheating.
It's funny that you go to the Beastie Boys rap, eh? It's like, no!
I was gonna be like...
I was going to go into it, but you stopped.
The Beastie
Oh,
Boys...
give me a beet beer and free my soul. I want to get lost in that.
Beaten Soul?
The
Sounds
beat
weird.
soul.
Sounds like my
Your
soul's been
hops
beaten.
and-
In my hops and Grohl.
Grohl? Dave Grohl?
Dave Grohl. I got nothing. Bless you. Is that a beat? All right. Who's ready to play?
I'm ready. I got my hat back on.
Yeah, let's do it.
And I got my
Get the tone back.
accent
Get
back on.
the tune. Get the tune.
Some good accents.
Great accents by everybody. It's great.
Thank you. Likewise. All these villages are very
Distinct
authentic.
in their British.
Oh my
What
god.
accent?
There's been different sects of British.
Godpool's dog is perfect.
Let's see.
Perfect. The perfect.
That's a
dog.
parrot. Oh, that is a cute dog.
That's a parrot, but the other one's a dog.
I like that kind. I don't know what that kind is, but I like
It's a
it.
border
Shepherd?
collie, isn't it?
I
Border
don't
collie.
know. I'm not a
And Zero's
dog.
picture of her cat being
Okay, I could just look at everyone's
stuck.
pet pictures all night.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we should just cancel
The pet
rest of
stream.
Just do a pet appreciation show.
Put
We can
on
do
some
that.
like funny like jester music, like do 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 do. That's just Star Wars.
Yeah, that was just the cantina.
Dude, did you see? So they're allowed to use songs with words for the first time on the Olympics for their figure skating routines this year. So people have been going hog wild. But one of the guys who was figure skating used like a Star Wars medley, and he was
I watched
dancing to
that.
the cantina music.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
It's so great. The Canadian announcer, I don't know, Canadian.
Who's the Canadian
television.
guy?
Not very many people are like up on Canadian announcers during the Olympics, but he's like, when I was 11, I used to think that this was my favorite song. I thought that was a really cute comment to make.
That was pretty cute. It's weirdly, like, revealing, too, for
Yeah,
a
it was-
commentator to be like, it's
Cool.
very personal, like, to be like,
Interesting.
this is my favorite
And how does it
song.
make you feel now?
Right? That's kind of funny, though. I like commentators that would be more like that. That seems like the guy who would do the pronunciation guide fucked up. Like, that'd be hilarious.
Yeah, he's
That's why they got this guy. For this Olympics, we need something new. We need something fresh. So I
Here
want you to
comes
just-
his
Man.
name's Robert Stanley, and you're fired.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen,
All right.
without further ado, we would
lost
turn.
Alex.
Oh no.
Oh, thank God. No one said. Oh, he's back. Oh no, never mind.
I'm having trouble with Invictus, so
That's okay. Just roll. Do you have a D10?
yeah. Hold up.
Just roll with it.
But it's the Justin Harlan stream now. Fucking A.
It's the Justin
Harlan
Harlan
stream. Get out of here, Alex.
Ruined it. Oh, man.
That's a perfect harmony.
That's not perfect harmony. We've had this discussion. Nothing.
When you watch it back, you'll say to yourself, "Damn it, that was perfect harmony."
Whatever. Where the fuck are we? Oh yeah. Part
in the
two
woods.
Just step into the winter
Undefeated.
wood.
of the Undefeated.
Defeated.
Skeleton's Key Part 2, End of the World, Zombie Apocalypse, Return to the Krampus. Let's do this. Any more games? The Strange Part 8.
Oh, can we talk about that thing?
What thing?
That other game that we're maybe gonna play?
No, not yet.
Okay.
No, I want to talk to that more.
Okay.
But soon.
All right.
I just realized something would be really good, but I can't reveal it now. But I have to write this down because I'm going to forget. Hold on. No, let's play the game. But I don't want to forget. I'm going to write it down.
Write it down.
Write it
How
down.
long is it going to take?
Oh,
He's gonna
Harlan then
write
spends
about
the next half an hour writing
45
down.
pages.
Yeah.
Story.
Have a nice night, everybody. Okay, without further ado, Don't Walk in Winter Wood. The Return. Fuck you. Fuck you. As you walk through the woods, Remus, you recall the time that you first entered the Winter Wood. What was that like?
when I was a boy, my brother and I growing up, I was about 10, my older brother 12. My father always told us, don't go into the Winterwood. He didn't tell us why. And now I know that it's a dangerous place. For my brother and I went in there, and only I made it out. It was a hot summer day. I believe it was end of August, because the leaves, well, the branches of the trees were quite dry. Marcus and I Had a good time going around snapping each branch of the tree. It would make a loud quack, 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 echoing sound. We were having a great time. It was just one afternoon. I never would have foreseen it ending the way it did. It got rather hot, and we walked into what we thought was a mist, but quickly found out that it was smoke. We didn't realize how deep we had wandered in our joviality, and when we found the fire, it had all but completely surrounded us. I managed to escape. Marcus wasn't so lucky. Covered in soot and char and embers poking holes through my clothes, I managed to stagger my way out of the wood, jump into the stream, coughing. Luckily, one of the other villagers was nearby, came to my aid, but when I told my father, he made sure I knew what I had done wrong. And he made sure that I knew that I was responsible for Marcus no longer being with us.
You think about this as you each head further into the winter wood, and Emily, you stop for a moment with an eerie chill as you realize that you stand roughly in the same spot you did when you were 13. That beyond this marks the furthest you've ever entered into the winter wood.
I've never been beyond this spot right here. She casts around on the ground looking for the familiar shapes of leaves that are herbs she's searching for.
And as you look around, you don't see any, but you do realize, almost as if looking in a memory, that the spot you stand in is the spot you turned back from all those years ago. At first you sort of dismiss it from your mind, thinking that the coincidence is too bizarre and great, but your eyes adjust to the trees and you remember distinctly, as if nothing has changed in those years.
The wood feels like a person to me here, almost as if it's watching us. Do you feel that?
Well, I feel one thing. There are no birds, no sounds of little animals scurrying around. Just the wind through the trees. Barely any of that.
It is barely any of that. The woods are so eerily quiet that the sense of dread is palpable. You can no longer see the sky, and the fog, the mist that sort of surrounded the edge of the wood is still creeping on the outskirts of your sort of area of effect, where you can just see beyond. And towards you, deeper into the woods, just lies a darker, more abyssal black, filled with the graying fog.
Do you see anything, Emily? What are we looking for? Maybe Piotr and I can help you look for these herbs.
It is a glossy green leaf, three-lobed, on a long stem. When you crush it, it smells peppery. It's called mildewort.
You got that, Piotr? Piotr, are you all right?
Yes.
Piotr.
Peter, you're staring into the darkness as if transfixed on the black behind the trees.
I didn't notice until you just said there. There are no birds. I came into these woods once before, many years ago when I first arrived in this town, and I never came back. They are watching us. I feel the eyes on me. I am not afraid of you! I scream into the
naked darkness.
And your voice is almost enveloped by the trees. There's no echo. It feels almost claustrophobic, and yet the space between the trees is wide, and the trees themselves are relatively thin despite the ancient age of the wood.
He swallows hard.
I wince slightly at the sound, and I say, come on, let's keep moving.
He swallows hard, and the lump goes over his Adam's apple and down his throat, and he realizes that if he turns back now, there's really nothing back there for him, just being a coward. And he's almost set aside everything else that he cares about, and moving forward, he feels this burning courage suddenly come up.
Emily takes a couple of steps forward. She says, Pieter, there's nothing here. I'm sure that Laura was febrile yesterday evening, and she imagined that she saw someone here in the woods. That's when she fell and hurt herself. I'm sure that we're hunting ghosts. If you please, keep your eyes down to the loam here. Between the dried leaves, we may find some healing herbs. We must make haste. She tracks the sun across the sky. It gets darker.
Surely, Emily, you don't believe your own words. You don't believe what you tell me. You do not feel the eyes on you. I admit that maybe, yes, she slept, but I do believe she saw the witch. For the same witch took my sister Andre and my father Stanislav when we first arrived in this town. And I won't forget that. You cannot deny it, that there is something about these woods which is not like other woods you've ever been in. Whether you believe in the witch or not, you keep your eyes on the ground, and I will keep looking around everywhere.
Father Lockley promised us that we would have protection. He blessed us. Come. She walks forward into the woods.
And as you walk forward into the woods with a bit of confidence, you step down a short drop to what sort of appears to be a circular area. And at first it doesn't really perplex you all that much until you realize that within this circle it's slightly indented, maybe only 2 to 3 inches down. It's sort of also a flat area, but there's no trees grown here. It's just a perfectly round area of ground within the woods, slightly indented.
This area we step into, quickly move out of it.
And I step out of the circle, or the area that's, dipped down.
Mm-hmm. And you
This is
each
so strange.
get a look at it, and it's maybe 10 feet across. Just a circle. Again, maybe 3 to 4 inches down.
What is it?
I don't know, but this is not natural. I feel this is something a witch would make. I would suggest we not stay here long. I say we keep moving.
Well, hold on. I can't believe I'm saying this, but if this is something that a witch might make, perhaps there are tracks nearby. Does it look like she would have made this recently?
No, it looks ancient, old. It's covered with sort of the underbrush and fallen leaves and sticks. Things of that ilk.
Does it look like the leaves and sticks are covering something?
Perhaps.
Like, is it a pit?
Maybe. I mean, it does sink down, but it stays relatively flat once it's sunken down.
And with a boot, I start pushing away some of the leaves on it.
And underneath you see what looks to be sort of fine sand.
This is different than the kind of earth that we find in town.
It's more similar to what you've seen at the creek bed.
It could
There was a
be.
pool here once.
Yes, that is what I was going to say. But it could also be some sink pit, you know. They have them in southern Siberia. Pits of sand that you sink. You could be trapped if it moves enough. Please,
Sink pit.
I beg you, please step off it. I feel that these are traps and there are... And as I back up, I step into something. Maybe...
Crunches beneath your foot, and you look down. And you see a dead bird. It looks old. Not ancient, but at least a few weeks.
It's a bird. I look around. Are there any other dead birds around me?
As your eyes sort of adjust to the underbrush, you realize that covered in all of these leaves and stuff like that, that the area has birds maybe every few feet. Emily, when you were looking for vegetation, you sort of noticed dead things as well, but it's only now upon sort of hearing the crunch under Peter's foot that you realize that the area is littered with them.
Anything in the circle?
You can take a look.
I keep brushing away some of the leaves, and I say, no, the soil is too firm to be anything. And I keep brushing away the leaves, and my foot touches something. Can I describe what I find?
Sure.
It hits something hard, which at first I feel is a stick, large, thicker log, and I look up at Emily, and then kneel down, and I remove some moss that is covering this area, and I see what looks to be a bone. And it looks like there are more, so I keep on uncovering, and I uncover an entire leg, a human leg it looks like, and then the other leg next to it, and the bones are scattered a little bit to the side. And then I continue up to a rib cage, and I get to revealing the head when I see what I thought were sticks sticking up at the far end of the pit, but they look more like antlers. And as I pull the leaves off of this skull, it is no human skull on this human body. It is a stag skull. Deer, placed onto the head where the human's head should have been.
Some vile taxidermy.
Aye.
More
I walk up.
strange yet is that we're seeing so many bones, birds, and animals here, corpses, and yet the wood is so silent and empty. There are no
Yes.
living creatures.
And it must have been brought by one of the villagers. Someone in the town is sick enough to do something like this. Jesus Christ.
We should tell Father Lockley when we get back to town.
You two are still under the impression that we live in a sane and safe world, when I believe you will see we are not. And my grip tightens around the axe that I hold in my hands. Come this way. And I notice a bit of a path heading
It is.
deeper
It's
into the
sort of
woods.
it's a oddly trodden path, and it seems to appear leading from this sort of area that you've uncovered. And Peter begins down the path as the two of you sort of follow. Again, it's hard not to allow your eyes to drift into the woods to the left and right from the path, looking off into the darkness, trying to decipher movement, objects, things that you feel like you can sense in your peripheral vision. And as the three of you continue walking, the path eventually leads to an area within the woods, deeper than any of you have ever gone. And you see what looks to be a small structure. Not a house, not a cabin, nothing necessarily that grandiose, but there looks to be maybe the stone markings of what was once a home. And as you enter sort of a small area, you see 2, maybe 3 decrepit, half-built wooden structures, long since destroyed.
Any sign of habitation?
Not in centuries. They
Okay.
look almost completely destroyed. There are stones strewn about. The stones themselves are carved in haphazard, makeshift, bizarre formations. And the path sort of sets off between 3 of these to-the-ground structure remnants.
Footprints?
You don't see any, no.
No, structure footprints. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. I head into, I guess, the one that's closest, and I kind of look around for anything.
No
of
roof or
recent.
walls. They're just sort of the outlines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with that in mind, I still step into the footprint of the building and look around.
Well, you each share an odd look. Knowing what you've known growing up in this village your entire lives, the nearest village to this is in the other direction, hundreds of miles away. No one has ever spoken of anything being built or had anyone lived in the winter woods. And yet these seem like they were once inhabited.
How is this we came across?
Yeah, just the remnants. They're down to the ground, no
3.
walls, no roofs.
Foundation.
Yeah.
3 foundations of buildings that are hundreds of years old, apparently. Peter wouldn't say anything, actually. He's kicking around looking for anything that might stand out. Maybe I should roll.
Sure.
Anything like markings on any of the buildings.
Sure.
A 3. So it's a success.
That's a success.
I guess.
Perfect. Yeah. So as you take a look into one of the foundations, you notice that the floors are made of stone, which is odd because not even your homes are laden with stone at the bottom. You just use the dirt. And as you sort of uncover a bit of the loose dirt on top of the stone, you realize that there are carvings, deep carvings, chiseled into many of the stones, runes that you don't recognize.
And I call the other 2 over. Hey, come, look at this. Strange carvings in the bottom of the floor. They have floors. In our village, we don't even have floors.
I'm not a learned woman. I cannot read. What does it say?
Can we read this?
No, but you do recognize it. Something about it you've seen before, Peter. Where have you seen it before?
Many years ago, I remember when I first came over from this, the Siberia and traveling where we were, I would hear stories along the way of people that would carve into stone or wood to form protection against mysterious paranormal things, witches, warlocks, things of that nature, maybe even just evil spirits. I don't necessarily recognize any of these markings, but the way in which they're flowing shapes, they remind me and they take me back to the childhood of talking to the cleric of the town where I grew up, and him telling me wild, fantastic stories of sorcery and magic and death and wicked torture, and how and something out of this clicks, and I look down and I start to spread away in almost a frantic way. This, and I blow. This is it. This is the marking. This is the marking of protection of evil. It is a symbol of, and as I point down, it's kind of a circle that it comes to the center and then it goes back out. And just the way it's carved, and there's 4 points around it with triangular points all going outwards. And I explain that this is a symbol of protection against evil spirits and evil things.
Pieter, you believe that these inhabitants hundreds of years ago were perhaps concerned with protecting themselves from some evil?
Maybe. And as I continued to brush away, I noticed that just outside of the foundation floor of this building, there are old, dried up twigs of ancient vines, spiky, thorned vines that wrap up and around the foundation, and even rocks, and they come up and you can see how rocks have been moved outside of the foundation. But the foundation floor of this building, although there are crevices, nothing has grown up in between the rocks and the stones of the floor.
Upon remembering this, Peter, and realizing this symbol, give yourself a cold point. And Emily, as you're watching this, your eyes tend to drift to the vacant lot next to this foundation, and you see a small stick sticking out of the ground on sort of a corner. And it seems to be marking something.
It appears that there's some sort of marker here, and she trudges over through the loam, the fallen leaves from the skeletal trees all around her, and crouches down to get a closer look.
And rustling through the leaves almost casts a deafening sound compared to the silence that you've all been experiencing since entering the woods. And as you crouch down next to what you now see is a grave site, you see the small piece of wood that's fallen from the cross, and you take it in your hands and look down at the grave, which is no bigger than an infant, a small pile of rocks marking the grave of some infant.
There must have been a child here.
And you're reminded being a midwife in the village and experiencing all of what you have with that. And it brings you back to a moment in time.
Yeah. I remember the first time that I had to deliver a baby that was silent and blue. Something slick. Something disfigured. I remember the woman, Charlotte, laboring long into the night, the way that she screamed and the baby did not. The silence of this woods. Coldness. She looks down at the grave and wonders whether the tiny skeleton was something like what she held in her hands 10 years ago. She stands up and wipes her hands off suddenly.
It's getting late. We're losing sunlight.
It is. And take a cold point, by the way, Joe. And well done, by the way. And as you try to look at the sun through the trees, Remus, you realize that you, being sort of a woodsman in the other woods, obviously, you've experienced the natural sort of ebb and flow of the day, and you realize that while the sun is still tough to decipher, you can tell it is going to be nightfall soon.
I say this is where we camp for the night. We'll collect some firewood from around the area. I'm sure these branches are dry enough to make good wood, but we have to be careful.
I'm sorry, Remus, you mean to stay the night in these woods?
I can't stay the night in these woods. It is... Unless, of course, we stay the night in this decrepit building foundation. I might feel safe on the floor.
Well, Peter, you've got your bedroll. Emily, we've got a bedroll for you as well, if you'd like one.
Thank you.
Please.
I think that we could sleep on one of these foundations and use the other foundation as a fire. Or possibly just create one fire in the middle of one. It's clear enough here that we don't have to worry about lighting any of the overhanging branches on fire, but we should keep it a small flame just in case.
Not that I necessarily believe the idea that we're hunting a witch here in the woods, and she's like, sounds less convinced than she was before. But I don't know, perhaps a fire is a bad idea. Could be seen from so far away. The trunks of the trees allow so much. You can see for so far.
Perhaps, but we cannot freeze to death out here, which the temperature has been dropping night by night.
And
What
I,
is it,
for
Peter?
one, would feel much safer with a fire as opposed to no fire. And dealing with a witch, I don't know if it would make much difference. They can see in the dark.
Whether or not we see a witch or not, I will keep watch for the first few hours. Piotr, will you shift off with us? With me?
Yes, of course I will. I will be likely very unable to sleep very well at all. And as I say this, fog starts to roll in as the sun begins to kind of go down, and this thick, misty fog kind of envelops the whole area.
And I will take the third watch.
Are you sure?
Yes.
You are welcome to sleep.
Thank you.
Us
goodbye.
gentlemen will take care of things.
A lady should not be subject to such requirements.
I'm beyond capable, but thank you.
Okay. Please, then, share with me. Have some of this alcohol. It will ease your nerves.
Thank you, Peter, but I'm a righteous woman. I do not imbibe.
And I pour some into a small tin cup.
Not even beet ale?
So you are.
I'll have an energy drink.
So you decide to camp within the foundation of one of these homes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And as Remus starts the fire, and you each sort of, for the moment, crowd around it to get warm. Again, the
I
chill
open up my bedroll and
in the winter wood is to the bone. And Remus, as you stare at the embers, you're overcome to share a story that you've long since been told by your father. About what you know of the Winterwoods.
Me.
Really? Yeah.
Yes.
but he's frozen.
You picked the name. Just kidding.
I find myself staring at the fire, and my mind is elsewhere, and in muffled sound I hear Peter saying my name. What's that? Oh, sorry, Peter. Sorry, rather. I was thinking about a tale my father once told me before I lost my brother. That pit we came to earlier in the woods. You remember the one?
But
Yes.
of course,
Of course.
how could we forget?
But for a second I thought that it was ash at the bottom. There's this tale that my father would tell me about someone called the Ember Man. and I stare into the embers of the fire as it crackles and pops in front of me.
I pull my blanket around me tighter and look out into the woods.
Well, it starts with our village. Though it is small, our village is quite old, as you all know. Centuries old, in fact.
Yes.
My father told me when I was a boy that years and years ago, the entire town burned. It killed everyone in it. There were no witnesses, no one left alive, no one to tell the tale of how it burnt down. It was not until years later that new settlers arrived and built from the ashes. One of these settlers was Oren, the town herbalist. He would travel the woods in summer, the winter woods, mind you, gathering medicinal herbs and flowers for the girls. He even ventured out into the winter when trees, all of the leaves had fallen and snow covered the forest floor. He told me that there's a particular fungus that grows high in the trees. I don't know, Emily, maybe you know of this fungus. That it's very useful in teas and salves.
Yes, of course. It is a bright
Right.
orange color.
That it is, yes. Tricky to find in summer when the trees are fully leaved. But in the winter, when the trees are as barren as they are now, this fungus is much easier to spot. So Oren would travel out into the winter woods, despite the cold and despite superstitions whispered by the other villagers. Whispers that the three of us have dealt with in large quantities the past few days. Well, one winter day, while he was out picking winter fungus, he came across a patch of dirt, a little inset. I always pictured it as something similar to what we saw today, and this patch was devoid of any snow. All of it was gone. Oren thought this was strange, as there was snow all around, save for this bare patch. So, curiosity inspiring him, he stepped atop the soil, found his feet begin to warm. I reach over and grab a stick and stoke the flame a little bit. Didn't hurt, so we continued into the patch. He was a few steps in when he realized that he was not stepping on dirt, but ashes.
Still
villagers.
warm from some fire?
Aye, still warm, and at this point starting to hurt his feet. So he rushed and jumped back. As the ashes flicked with orange embers and his feet began to prick with pain, he moved back quickly to the snow. And he thought at that moment that maybe this patch was the villagers from the burned village, the village that he had settled and rebuilt. Even after all these years, these ashes were the villagers. He was standing among the dead. So, he's standing on the snow, and my hand freezes as I'm stoking the fire. And to his surprise, he finds that his feet are still hot, even on the cold white snow. So he takes off his boots. They get colder. He takes off his woolen... they get warmer, rather. He takes off his woolen socks, and they get even hotter still, beginning to hurt. The heat moves up to his knees, then to his groin. The pain spread and grows intense. He tries to stomp his way back to the village, but now his eyes are burning and he can no longer see. My father told me that he felt around, blindly, arms outstretched, pushing from tree to tree, not being able to see a thing. He felt the bark begin to cinder, and then the crackle as the trees he touched rose in flame. And he stopped, his body obviously racked in pain. Oren was a good man. He realized at that point that he couldn't go back to town. If everything he touched turned to fire and ash, then he'd be putting the entire village and everyone in it at risk. This was his fate, and he was doomed to it. So he did not leave. He did not go back to the village. He stood and waited for his body to perish, as he thought it surely would. But it never did. His pain continued to grow, but he never passed on. Days went by, weeks, waiting for his body to perish, but it never did. Now, my father told me that to this day, and mind you, this happened many years ago, so this day, when I was a kid, is pretty much the same as it is today. I've heard that he still walks these woods in the winter. Some of the older townsfolk will even tell of friends who've seen him in there themselves in their youth. Some still will tell you that while his body remained, your lord, I say to Emily, on account of Oren's good deeds, allowed his soul to pass on. And so now the man who wanders these woods, the Ember Man, is naught but a husk of a human, completely soulless, constantly roaring with fire. Everything he, or I should say, or it, rather, going up in flames and turning to ash. Me? I don't know. Can't say I ever really believed my father's tales, but I don't know. Something about today made me think of it.
It's chilling.
And as you finish your tale, the log on the fire cracks and crumbles, again sending those embers up into the night sky. Each of you take a point of cold. And Justin, you would have had one from finding the skull earlier too, so you should all be at 3.
Okay.
And I would like everyone to roll a 1d10.
Of course.
Ooh.
Just as we...
I got an even 7, which is my cold. Do ties win or lose?
A 7?
Yeah.
You should only have 3 cold points.
I went into the woods, so 10... Sorry, I'm subtracting from 10, yes?
No, you're at, yeah, it's like you only have 3 cold points, so you just need to get above a 3 to succeed. So you succeed.
Well then I did.
You're good.
I succeeded
Remus
as well.
did too. And Alex,
Sorry,
I did not.
I was thinking of it like hit points, and I'm subtracting cold points from.
it probably could work that way too, but it's just easiest to think of it this way because
Yeah, to roll under.
It's
but this is-
additive.
you have to roll.
Not
Yeah.
subtracting.
Sorry, Alex, did you succeed?
0. I failed hard.
You rolled a 0. Oh, you rolled a 10.
Oh, that's 10.
yeah, no,
Yes.
you're fine.
Perfect.
So you
Okay.
Succeeded.
So 7, 10, and what'd you roll, Justin?
7 as well.
Hell yeah.
Okay, then
Trying to
you
break the
and
creepiness,
Joe,
'cause this
you
is getting to
and
me.
Joe roll again, please.
Ooh.
Me and Joe
Roll again, please.
All right.
10.
Ooh, I don't think I can beat that. I got an 8.
Okay, Justin, Remus, which watch were you taking?
First watch.
First watch, perfect. So, as the other 2 fall asleep, and you sit watching the fire as much as you can, your eyes drift towards the wood. And despite your absolute best efforts, your heavy eyelids sink, and you close your eyes. And when you open them again, there's a strange woman standing before you. You're in the foundation of the home. You see Peter and Emily lying asleep just as they were, but you're standing, and the woman stands opposite you against the firelight, which, from your last memory, was dying as your eyes shut, but the fire in this dream blazes. She walks away from you, steps over the foundation, and she beckons you to follow her.
I don't I grab my axe.
You go to reach for your axe, but you can't grab it. It sits there, and as you turn back, you see yourself sleeping, lying against the foundation of the building.
What the? I stand up, confused. I try to wake the others.
And again, your hands pass through them. The figure beckons you forward, but this time you see the placid, almost smile that she has now faded to more of a indifferent as she beckons you forward.
I assume this is just a dream, so I follow her.
And as you follow her through the woods, she takes your hand, and you feel the frail, thin fingers in your hand as she follows, or she leads you through the woods. They're still and quiet, just as they were when you walked through, and she leads you back and forth in a maze between these trees until you enter a small clearing. In the center of the clearing is an oak tree, ancient. It sprawls up towards the canopy of trees and sits surrounded by dead grass. And she leads you towards it, and you stare at it, running a hand along the oak wood. And as you turn to her, you see in her hand a knife, a nail, and a hammer. And she speaks to you in a voice that seems as if it's not actually being said, but being projected into your mind. And she tells you to carve Emily into the tree.
Why?
She just smiles and motions towards the blank slate of the tree.
Why? Tell me why.
And you
Come
see
and
her
get me while I sleep.
smile begin to fade, and she points towards the tree again.
You want me to carve Emily's name into this tree? Why would I do that?
Not her name, the voice again says. Her figure.
You overestimate me as an artist. I turn to walk away.
Roll a d10. Oh, I'm going to give you another cold point. Sorry for following here. So you have to get above a 4.
All right, let's see here. I got an 8.
Okay, so yeah, you can walk away. And
do.
as you walk away, she calls to you as you reach the edge of the wood, and you hear the voice again speak one more time into your mind, and again it forces you sort of to stop. And she says, "Do not leave this area."
Why not? Are there bears out there? Wolves? Frankly, I'd rather deal with them than you.
And as you sort of look back towards her, her figure vanishes, and you wake up suddenly next to the crackling fire.
Is the fire going, or is it died?
It's died. The last time you saw it awake, it's sort of basically how it was.
I shake my head, ashamed that I nodded off, and I stoke the flame back to a reasonable level, and I turn to see if the others are stirring at all.
Do either of you stir? It seems like Emily's sleeping well.
Peter is sound asleep, very much in a deep sleep.
Well, the remainder of the night passes uneventfully. You each trade off for your shifts, and as the morning, or what could be called morning in the winter wood, comes, so does a mist and a thicker fog than the night before. But slowly you each rise, put out the fire, pack up, and continue into the woods.
There must be a marsh nearby or something that
How did you reach
keep
sleep?
getting this fog.
Slept
Yes.
fitfully. I'm worried. We are now a day gone from the village, and Laura must be doing poorly. I think about the blood loss we were unable to staunch, and whether we will be indeed able to find the herbs we require to heal her.
And as you say this, you stand in between the three foundations, the path that you came from, that led you towards these three foundations, but also where the path sort of continues off deeper into the woods.
We must go. I was the last on watch, and I woke these two at the very break of dawn, knowing we're on a time limit.
I think Emily was the last one.
I actually was.
I know
But
you
that's
were.
Why
fine.
were you the last one?
Because she said it. I remember. Because I made it.
I thought you were in the middle.
No, but that's okay.
Okay,
I was in the middle.
so then Emily woke us up at the crack of dawn. Emily!
Why
I get up.
Time to go.
It's the crack of dawn, though. We do not have too much time left. I feel like perhaps we should be on our way. Quickly
Right.
now. Laura is waiting on us. We are her only hope.
So we straight off.
We start off, yeah.
And this day, I do keep my nose closer to the ground, looking for the herbs, because I realize that these woods have darker mysteries than just a witch. And if we're gonna find something, it may not be the witch.
You work through the woods. You begin on the path as it continues deeper into the woods, and you begin realizing that this area at some point was inhabited again centuries ago, as the foundations you just left must have seen. But something about the trees, you see axe marks into half cut down trees. You see trees that have been cut down and left to rot. And as you continue down this path, you see a bridge spanning a deep creek bed, which is long since dried. The bridge looks like it was painted red at one point, but now, again, like the foundations, it's ancient, but it still seems relatively sturdy. And it crosses over the deep creek bed and continues off into the woods.
As we approach this bridge, Emily looks down the gully into this deep creek bed, the trench, and she sees a small trickle of water, and growing beside this creek there's a flash of green leaves. She says, just one moment, please. Before we cross, I would like to see what kind of plants grow along this creek bed. It's very steep, though.
This must be the Red River Creek. The Red River Bridge. And I mean that because it is a red bridge over the river.
You've never heard of this bridge before. This is, again, no one that you've ever met or know of has traveled this deep within the Winterwood.
But
I
he's
make-
pretending.
I make joke. It's
Oh, you
red.
definitely can.
It's Red Bridge. You know, Red River Bridge. Maybe this is not time to joke.
Shouldn't it be
Emily.
the River Red Bridge?
Yes, I suppose. But in Slavic, we see things backwards, so.
You
I
can
hold-
Speak in Serbia.
Serbian, yes. Serbian.
you can make your way down to the riverbed by sort of leaning on the bridge and using it as a bit of a.
And I also assist, and I kind of give her my forearm, and I hold onto the bridge, and we kind of do some leaning and pulling.
And as you wrap your fingers around the bridge, it feels disjointed. Something about it is off. The sticks that line the sides of the bridge are almost slick in your hands, and
What?
feel misshapen. For the time, you ignore it, Emily, as you reach down towards the riverbed and you approach the glint of green that you had seen.
Oh, this is it. Oh my goodness. This is mildwort, see? And she pulls a few tufts of the weed from the creek bed. As I was saying, the glossy green leaf and the burnt smell when you pull it. Just one moment, and she leans down and starts stuffing handfuls of the leaves into the pouch that she carries.
And you do, and there's plenty beneath the bridge. And as you sort of begin shoving them in your pack underneath the shadow of the bridge, Remus, you sort of look back the way you came and you look towards through the woods, and as you squint, you notice that there is a building, a fully formed cottage, just down the path a little way. And Peter, as you, one hand still on the bridge, are looking down at Emily collecting the herbs, you look down at the bridge in your hand, and you recoil in horror as you realize that the bridge isn't made out of wood at all, but it looks like it's made out of petrified body parts, mostly of young children. And you get a cold point, by the way.
No, and I immediately let go, and fall into the riverbed, next to Emily.
And Emily,
this is, and I scream actually out in horror. It's not a loud scream, but it's still like a kind of a whimpery. The bridge, it's not red. It's. I'm sorry, I made that joke.
Does Emily see the same thing?
Yeah, so you sort of look up in reaction because you've also thought about it and you felt it, and you realize that the whole undercarriage of the bridge is again made of petrified limbs, like feet and
legs. I want to say the bottom of the planks, like the part you'd walk on, it's all faces, and they're all like this.
Yeah.
And she starts to like climb hands and feet up the riverbank to get back up to where Remus is.
And I'm kind of hands and feet going backwards, not really paying much attention to the fact that I'm dragging myself through dirt and mud and scraping myself up, and I've cut my hands and I'm all dirty and bloody.
Give me a roll, Peter. You now both have, everyone has 4 cold points, by the way. Just heads up.
I failed.
And as you begin climbing back through the mud, you're peeling back pieces of mud, and beneath where you're crawling, you're unveiling more body parts and more pieces of flesh beneath the muddy riverbed.
I stand up and turn, and noticing that the riverbed has very steep sides next to the bridge, I start running away from the bridge up the river bed, and essentially away from the Red River Bridge and the and my companions here.
Peter, where are you going?
No, I have to get out of this riverbed, and I look for a shallower area where I can climb out.
Yeah, and you find one just a little ways down. And Remus, you see Emily clawing at the sides of the riverbed trying to get out.
And just snapping out of a thought, I reach down to help her up.
Remus, the bridge! She looks all around her and starts.
What is it?
Walking back along the path that we came from.
Back along the path, back where we came?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bring Peter. We must go right now. This is an evil place.
Okay, well, 1 minute. Peter. And I wait for Peter to join us.
And I do. I come running back in kind of a horrified, and now my eyes are wide and my hair is all over the place. And I reach down and I grab the axe that I dropped next to me. And without listening to them and without thinking about what they're saying, I run across the bridge towards this building, which now I see kind of off in the distance. That witch! Let me get my voice down.
That witch, she will pay for what she's done. I will kill her. I will
Peter,
kill
wait.
her my very self.
And Peter runs off towards the building that you saw through the woods, Remus. Remus, did you investigate the bridge as well, or did you just sort of like...
No, I didn't. What is going on? What's wrong with the bridge?
Remus, it's awful. The whole bridge is made of... Oh, hell, it's dead. People, children.
Damn it. Well, there's a cottage over there. Listen, Emmeline. Peter, damn it. I've got to go after him. You need to get back to town. This might help her.
I can't go through the woods by myself. But I can't cross that bridge.
Peter! Peter!
In an insane, frantic motion, I'm charging towards this house, axe in one hand, over my head, and in my other hand, my clenched fist, and I'm screaming. Ah!
Yeah.
In an insane, losing my mind sort of way.
Okay. And the last image you see of Peter is running towards the cabin.
Listen, we need to get this back. Maybe Peter's onto something. What? Shit.
Well, he can follow this path the same way that we came, and he's all right in the woods himself. He can make his way back to town, I presume. Peter! Damn it!
He'll find us. We'll call out to him. We've got the entire day to make it back, which we'll need, and we'll need to hurry. But getting these herbs to Laura is most important. And a flash of doubt crosses my face. And as I begin to walk with Emily in one arm, I say, I think I dreamt of her last night.
What do you mean?
The witch. I maybe it was just a dream, but it felt like something more. She was trying to get me to draw you, or likeness of you on a tree.
Me?
Yes.
What did she say? Why?
She said to do it. I don't know. I did not do it, but
This was a vision.
if we need to sleep in the woods... Wait, what?
It was a
You think
vision.
it was...
Well, perhaps. Or maybe just the overactive mind of a tired woodsman thinking about trees and carving and whatnot. Do you really think there's a witch?
What did you see on that bridge?
Well, I made it down to the bottom, as you saw, with Peter, and I was using handholds, the support beams from the bridges we climbed down, and Peter was doing the same, and you saw me gather handfuls of the herb from the creek bed, and Peter made a terrible noise. He realized the bridge was made of... Oh, the body parts. It was awful. They're decomposing, petrified limbs and faces. Oh God. Underneath the bridge there were faces staring down at us.
Damn it. We can't leave him there. Oh, all right. And I turn, and I say, stay behind me. And I hold my axe up in both hands, and I start charging back towards the bridge. Peter! Peter, where are you?
And you cross the bridge, and as you do, you approach the cabin, and you see the cabin door is hacked apart, and fallen into shards within the dark interior of this building. From the outside, it looks abandoned, and for a moment you stop before entering inside. And as you do, you look up towards the trees, and you realize that they are filled with blackbirds, all silently staring at you and the cabin before you.
I say to Emily, and I gesture for us to go up the steps to the cabin.
Did Emily cross the bridge?
Oh, Emily, do you?
Yeah, she was a couple of feet behind.
Why don't we
She doesn't want to be
do
left alone.
a roll to see if you crossed the bridge?
Okay.
Because I think that makes a lot of sense.
6. Yes, I did.
Perfect. So yeah, you crossed the bridge. And you also notice the blackbirds all silently staring towards the cabin and the two of you.
Oh God. Oh God.
And inside you hear a sort of whimpering.
And
Do we see Peter?
It's too dark inside to see. But you think you can hear him.
I gesture for Emily to stay there. And I take a step inside.
And Remus,
Peter.
you see Peter sitting on the floor, the hatchet lying next to him. The cottage itself seems long since vacant, but it's pretty noticeable even to yourself that witchcraft was here. The floor of the cottage is littered with melted candles and strange herbs. There's a large chest in the corner, and the entire room, there dangles petrified limbs from the ceiling, all twisting and turning as you enter the dimly lit cottage, which you'll also take a cold point for, by the way. And you see Peter lying there.
I kneel next to him, and I put my hatchet down next to his, and I say, Peter, get a hold of yourself. We're here. You're all right, Peter. Get your hands off your face. Come here. And I try to pull his hands off of his face.
And Alex, why don't you give me a quick roll?
A 7.
Success. So he manages to pull your hands off your face.
What happened? What did you see? What is this place?
She's here. She's here. Run. She's here.
And you manage
Get
to.
up.
So I
again.
get up.
You seem the cottage is long since abandoned. It seems like definitely witchcraft was here at one point.
She's here.
And I grab the hatchet next to me and I get up.
Run.
Where do we run to?
There is a back
to
door.
the village.
You two, go back to town. I'll follow up the rear. I know these woods better than the both of you. Go.
No,
Get out.
together now. Come on.
I'll make sure she doesn't follow.
Father Lockley said we had to do away with this demon. We should do it together.
Again, there's a large chest in the room, and there's also a back door. Anyone who's noticed the limbs will get a cold point, which I'll just say everybody did, because it's pretty tough to lose. Actually, I'm going to give you another cold point too, Alex, for being fucking crazy.
I thought you were gonna kill me there. Sorry.
No, it was good. I'm saying
okay.
It's crazy. You're hacking down the door and shit. That's fucking nuts,
All right.
man. It's good.
Emily,
So I go.
So maybe before I run from the building, I look in the chest.
Sure. So you open up the chest, and how do you go about doing it?
Is it open? Like, is it unlocked?
It is unlocked. I'll tell you what's in it, and you can describe how you want to do it.
is it a
Remus is
mimic?
going to the back door.
Could you imagine?
David Johns just posted that.
Okay. Maybe you should share that with the stream community.
Well, I'm saying that's what you find. You can tell me how that happens.
Okay, so I hack away the basic lock that's on there very easily, and I open the wooden, thinking I'm going to either find gold or a cure. And to my...
You had your hopes pretty high there.
but
I'm
to
gonna
my
find gold or a new car.
to my surprise, I only find 2 dead, petrified children, hacked up into square bits to fit neatly, and their dead, cold faces with their eyes wide open just stare right at me. And I'm just gonna say that I get another cold point,
Yep, that's
aka
8.
lose some sanity.
Yeah, you're at 8 now.
The reality is, this is fucking horrifying.
And Remus, sorry.
I don't even look at the chest. I burst through the back door and axe up. I can hear Pieter's reaction to the contents of the chest, and I'm looking around the outside, trying to spot whoever it is who's out there. And I see the blackbirds all staring back at me.
Mm-hmm.
Emily goes through her pouch and finds the vial of holy water that the priest gave to us and holds it, shaking in her hand, both hands, just looking around at everything hanging, slowly rotating from the room as Piotr's going through the trunk. We have to get out of here.
And you notice that the back door to this place is slightly ajar.
Oh, the back door. I burst through there.
Yeah.
Yes.
My apologies.
That's where he burst through, yes?
That's what I meant.
Let's
Yeah.
As
I
you
burst through and I
go.
saw the birds looking at me.
And as you burst through the back door, you notice something. In the center of this sort of backyard, which borderlines the winter woods, there is a large oak tree. The same one that you saw in your vision. Except there is a figure carved into this.
Do I recognize it?
Emily and Peter, what are you guys doing, sorry?
We come stumbling out shortly after.
Yep.
And you see the same thing, the three of you freeze, as you see a figure of a woman carved into the oak tree before you. And in the center of her chest, a large nail is driven.
What is this possibly to be?
Is it... Can I approach and examine the carving's face?
Absolutely.
Is it Laura?
So you walk towards the tree, and as you approach, it seems just like a faceless figure. You can tell that it's female because it has long hair, and it's obviously a female figure. But you can't, there's no face necessarily.
I wonder if this is some kind of black magic. Something that is injuring the poor girl. What do you think?
I say take the nail out. Can't hurt.
No. All right. And Emily grabs the nail with both hands and starts wiggling it, trying to pull it out.
And slowly, as you pull it out, you see a bit of blood begin to trickle out from the tree. And as you pull it loose and you fall back, the nail falls to the ground beside you, and a little trickle of blood falls from the hole. But that's about it.
What's this? A tree bleeding.
I stand up and use the axe in my hand to hatchet away the face from the tree, no longer giving this figure a face.
Okay.
That has the effect I'm going for, and not the opposite.
So you
Back in the village, we watched Laura as her face.
No, it takes away the persona. It takes away the attachment is what I'm going for.
I watch him do that, and I say, I think you've got the right idea, and I begin hacking at the base of the tree.
okay.
And then,
So
yes, I see him, and I say, I think you have the right idea too, woodcutter. And I start hacking the other side to meet him halfway.
and you begin hacking the tree, and eventually you cut the tree down.
The whole fucking tree comes
Again, the woods cutter having experience, dealing with this, and as you hack it down and the tree falls over,
Are the birds just watching this
they're
whole
just
time?
watching. You hear a hushed voice speak to each of you. Can I have a drink of water? And the three of you turn around towards the back door, and there, standing, is the apparition that you saw in your dream, Justin. A woman standing there, and she asks you each for a drink of water.
Oh, well, yes, of course, my dear.
No.
And
This is the woman from my dream?
Yeah.
Emily starts striding forward, but she's pulling the stopper off of the vial of holy water that she was given. Yes, of course. Here you are, my love.
I don't see
You
this
must
happening.
be parched.
And I say,
And-
no, Emily.
Shh. Wait, I see the vial that she's using, and I stop Peter.
And she looks
Please.
at you in the eye, and give me a roll, Joe. 5 or above.
Ooh, I failed.
She takes the water from your hands.
Run!
Chug.
I'd say she still drinks it. And almost in a blink of the eye, the apparition is gone.
And the vial clink falls to the stone and shatters.
It does. And seeps into the ground.
You see it kind of bubble and smoke. And
I'm melting.
And the three of you share a knowing look. An uncomfortable uneasiness with the figure that just disappeared before you.
We may have beaten the witch, but these woods are still much more evil than that. I think we should get going. Surely this will all help the girl, Laura.
Yes,
The tree.
we must. The tree, the nail has been removed and the tree chopped down, and then... Did you all see that? As well, there was a girl just here.
And you still have the mad root.
Spoke to her. She brushes her hand through the doorway where the apparition was standing. She's gone now.
Emily,
Perhaps- Yes.
even with your own eyes seeing it, you do not believe it. This is the witch I was telling you about. It is not in the dreams. It is not in the makeup. This is life. This is the witch.
The
Let's
three
go.
of you quietly begin heading back the way you came, sharing...
Just a minute.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'll be right back. There's just something I want to take care of.
Justin.
And
Just a minute. I'll be right back.
I just need to cut down every other tree.
yeah, just in the area, just to be sure.
Just 1 second.
So Remus, you pop away for a second as the other two begin heading towards the bridge.
And I return to the house. And I take out my flint and tinder.
I was thinking.
And I look at the space of the trees around the house. And then I shake my head. It doesn't matter. And I begin flicking away at the flint or at the tinder or however you do it until I get a small flame going.
Tinder is like a little bit of wood, right? And the flint is you hit it with your knife.
flint and steel.
Flint and the steel.
Flint and steel.
Tinder
yes,
is
there we
something
go.
that catches wood, yeah.
Right, yes. Thank you, Emily. and and yeah, I start a fire on the house, and I never see the face of my brother Marcus petrified in the chest as I turn back and walk back to the others.
As the three of you head back home, the flames in the woods behind you, they very quickly fade out of sight. Between the slatted trees, you can barely make out the light from the fire, but you know that it burns bright and strong as you pass by the foundation of the houses and the circular area, and eventually to the edge of the winter wood. You've each experienced something that you can't readily forget, and as you exit and cross through the creek and approach the village, you see a number of people crowded around the home of the Ellis homestead, I should say. And as you walk towards the doorway, you see Egon walk out, his eyes red with tears, and Father Lockley walk out afterwards. He stops, sees the three of you, and shakes his head no.
No, Father.
The girl, she's okay, no. Don't tell me she lost her head.
That poor girl suffered a death worse than anyone could have possibly imagined. And he sort of stifles his own as he walks away from the home. And for those who were morbidly curious to have to find out, entering Laura's bedroom would have shown the deep gashes cut into her skin, her neck, her legs, as she died the most painful death of 1,000 axe strokes. The end.
Y'all are murderers.
How would we know? Really?
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Don't Walk in Winter Wood. Well done, guys.
Thank you, Harlan. That was spooky.
That was good.
That was a lot of fun.
That was
Super bummed out you cut it down because you had it and then you didn't. I was like, aw. But hey, you never know. You had a 50-50 shot, I guess.
Well,
not really. You kind of knew it.
the PCs are just gonna fuck it up.
What's
That's
that?
hilarious.
Well, now you know what?
That's okay.
I still think it's gonna win. It's a win in my books because now she can't do that to other villagers. I mean, it's not a win.
Well, yeah, no, I don't.
No,
think-
because she's gonna come back as a witch and then haunt us because we murdered her. I think.
Yeah, well, I don't think you killed the witch either, actually, which was yeah.
That was what's her name?
The bridge was a witch.
That was Katrina or whatever, right?
No, she's sort of. It's interesting because very rarely do I run something by the book. But this was by the book how it was. Like, it literally says, any other damage inflicted on the tree will be reflected on Laura Ellis's body. I.e., if the tree is burned, her body burns. So you guys went the most visceral, whack, whack, whack. And I kind of wanted to be. Could you imagine just lying there and it's cuh, cuh, cuh. It would just be terrifying.
You mean? Can you imagine getting chopped to death with axes?
Oh, it sucks.
Oh, that's the creepiest ending we could have had. Which
I know. Which it sort of was. But the nail was the solution. Just had to keep it there. Just
1,000 axe chops.
But hey, that's the fun. Ladies and gentlemen, well done. But you guys did so great. Great storytelling from everybody.
Yeah, really.
All right.
We had some active people on the Discord.
Some super
too.
active people, and I'm thinking endgame post goes to the very talented Mr. David John.
Yeah.
Good job, guys. And well done, David. That was a lot of fun. You guys were very active tonight. Please make sure to like the video if you have not liked it. Really important. because it makes us feel good. And also check out this game if you haven't checked it out. Don't Walk in Winter Wood. It's like I said, it was a Kickstarter game. It's an independent one. Give them a few bucks. I'm sure it's cheap on Drive-Thru-RPG, and whoever sent it to us, thank you for that. It was a lot of fun to play and a lot of fun to read, and a quick read. We changed a few of the rules. Typically, it's meant to be played in past tense, which I think is kind of a neat way, which is why a lot of the middle section was encouraged to sort of involve these guys in the storytelling. You're sort of meant to be around the fire being like, oh, and then, Remus walks towards the fire pit and pulls out a limb or something like that. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do with it in a storytelling sense. So hopefully you guys try it out yourself. Also, D6. Really it's also a D6, yeah, which probably actually would have been better. I don't know, actually. Maybe not. I think it worked out pretty damn well. Ladies and gentlemen, have yourself a fantastic night. That is it from us. And as my friend Joe always likes to say,
I'm on my way to work now.
I'm on my way to work now. Good night.
I'm on my way to work.
And we're off. Oh, wait.